Hey, welcome back. Now, for those of you who skipped the first video, we are here talking about wide converters, specifically for Super 8 cameras. Now, these are great. As we discovered in the first video, there is a limit to how wide these cameras can go, and this specific one goes down to Super 8 equivalent 7.5mm, which is only about roughly 50mm on a full frame 35 camera. Now, that was wide enough for me, and these were a new discovery, even in my sort of not amazing photography experience. I didn't know these actually existed, but yeah, I managed to get hold of one. This is a Canon, lovely Canon camera. I had to order this all the way from Australia. I'm in the UK, so obviously the postage was quite a lot, but this one goes down to 0.7, so it's 0.7 multiplier, and this Pixco, mixed reviews on this one on the internet, goes down to a quite impressive 0.45. So what you'd basically do is take your number, whether it's Super 8 equivalent or 35mm equivalent, and you times it by 0.7 or 0.45, and it will give you a wider field of view. Now, I've done some maths already. I'm not going to show you how I did it. If you watched the first video, you'd understand it's the same process, but ultimately I jumped ahead and worked out what the inverted modifier is or multiplier is for one of these lenses. And as you can see here on the 0.7, I've worked out my multiplier to be 1.42, and also on the Pixco 0.45 multiplier, I've got an inverted factor of 2.2. So, moving on, what does this mean? So if I have a lens, and I'm going to stick with my 35mm full frame equivalent, just for this, because like I said in the previous video, that's the way my mind works. So I'm going to start with a 35mm lens. Now, that's not to be confused with the size of the sensor. I mean a literal 35mm lens, and I can times that by 1.42, and then that tells me that I need to set my focal length at 49.7mm, 35mm context, and that 35mm is the result I'll get. Now, of course, I've already gone one step ahead, and I've actually, again, like I mentioned in the previous video, it's put a little sticky on here of 50mm. If I want to get 50mm on my 8mm camera. Obviously, if I round this 49.7 up, I'm pretty much bang on 50mm. So quite quickly I can get, with this Canon 0.7, a 35mm result. One thing to mention with these also is that obviously, because it's a wide converter, there's going to be a hell of a lot of distortion. So you kind of, well, you really want to stick down by the wide open range. If you start zooming in on somebody, the distortion is going to be the same, but you'll notice it a lot more. And they say the camera puts on 10 pounds. This is probably going to put on like 30 or 40. So if you want to keep your skinny friend skinny, keep it at the wide angle lens. And then obviously equally with the Pixco 0.45, if you want a 24mm, you could times that by your 2.22, and it tells you, again, I need roughly 53.8mm to get the equivalent of a 24mm lens. And obviously, again, it's pretty close to my 50mm. It's going to be so close to get it on something like 53 anyway, but you're very much in the ballpark, and you'll never notice the difference anyway. So just to summarize, and this is the for the people who really want to understand the maths, but again, I would strongly advise you to keep notes or stick stickers on your camera so you don't have to work this stuff out. But for those of you who are interested in how to reverse engineer it, I've come up with this one here, which will hopefully walk you back through what we've done in the previous two videos. So, starting at the top, and I'm using the Canon as an example here, you can start off with your desired 35mm lens, and again, that's not the focal length, that's the equivalent lens. And then you would times that by the 1.42 multiplier, and then that will give you the result of the 35mm equivalent that you would need to set to get that result from your lens. Now, if you haven't preemptively written that down or putting it on your camera, you would then need to work that out. So you then take that exact same number, times it by your 0.16 that we worked out in the previous video, and then that will tell you where to set it on your Super 8 camera. Now we have a live example. Again, I could have picked a better number, but I'm actually going to use a 35mm lens, because again, that's why I bought that Canon one. Again, not to be confused with the size of the sensor, but if I want a 35mm lens, I would times that by the crop factor for this Canon, which is 1.42, and that gives me roughly, pretty bang on, 49.7mm. Now, again, I have a sticker on mine that says 50mm. I'm going to set it on that. That's going to give me what I want. But in the case that I didn't put that sticker on there, I would then take that near 50mm, I times it by my 8mm modifier, 0.16, and that tells me that I need to set my Super 8 camera at 7.96, or as in the previous video, 8mm. So yeah, that's it. Wide converters and crop factors. Hopefully, you know, just using the numbers that we came up with here, your 0.16 if you want to get from your full frame 35 into super equivalent, or your 1.42 here for your Canon 0.7 lens, you'll be able to get out and shoot some more narrative based film with a Super 8 camera.